My name is Sage and I'm here to give you my director's commentary of Heathers. Heathers is a cult classic from the 1980s, loved and appreciated by many. Over the years, Heathers has found its way back into mainstream media through things like TV shows, a lot of them being seriously critiqued and hated, and musicals. Personally, Heathers the musical is how I first found out about this movie. I fell in love with the musical, its songs, the costume design and the acting. This led me to eventually watch the movie, curious as to what the original piece of media looked like. Immediately, I found myself falling in love with every part of the movie. The character development, colours, the way different aspects of the movie foreshadow different plot points. All these reasons are why I've chosen this movie as it holds a place close to my heart. During the opening sequence, we hear non-diegetic audio of the song Whatever Will Be, Que Sera Sera by Doris Day in the background.
When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be?
This song was intentionally chosen as the lyrics also fit with the movie and its plot. A teenage girl in a high school clique who falls in love with an outcast and accidentally poisons the leader of the group together, framing it as a suicide, which then leads to an eventual murder spree of students that JD didn't like. For example, the lyrics
Will I be pretty? Will I be rich?
link to the movie's theme of the desire for popularity and also fits Veronica's character arc as she tries to fit in with the rest of the Heathers, only for her life to flip around. To add to this, the lyrics
Que sera, sera. Whatever will be.
immediately tells us at the start of the movie that the story isn't quite as it seems, linking with the fact that it's a dark comedy that starts off as a relatively normal teen drama. We start with a close-up of Heather Chandler tying her hair up with a red scrunchie. This is done to bring focus to the colour red as it's taking up most of the screen. From this, we know that she's important to the story and that she's a leader, as the colour red symbolises leadership and power as well as danger, which links to the fact that she's seen as dangerous and powerful to the rest of the school. In the next shot, we have an establishing shot of the garden and all three Heathers. Just from the location, we already get the impression that they are well off and have a lot of money due to the statues, elegant outdoor furniture and all the flowers. Adding to this, their clothing can also give the impression that they have a lot of money, as all of their clothes are neat and ironed, even having a crest on some of them, which is usually associated with wealth and private schools. In front of the Heathers, we can see a small gate surrounding them, which could allude to the Heathers being a very closed-off, protected group. To the rest of the school, they are untouchable. As the Heathers stand up, we can see how close they are to each other through their body proximity. Heather McNamara automatically walks close to Heather Chandler, whereas Heather Duke keeps a little bit of distance, not enough to be noticeable to the group, but there's still a difference between the other two. This can link to Heather Duke feeling partially isolated from the group due to her jealousy. Moving on, we are shown a close-up of the flowers. This is done purposefully to show the flowers being crushed as the Heathers walk across them. The director shows this for multiple reasons, the main one being to show the carelessness of the Heathers as a group. They don't care about their actions and how they impact others, only what they want to do. They don't care about the fact that they killed the flowers because it saved them time instead of walking around the entire gate. Another reason the director might have chosen to have this shot is to foreshadow the death of Heather Chandler. As we've already seen, the colour red is prominently used to represent Heather Chandler and her role as leader. Therefore, the red flowers being squashed could symbolise the death of Heather Chandler and how that started everything. In the scene of Heather's death, the colour palette is overwhelmingly pink instead of the usual red that we are used to. This already implies that something is going to happen, as pink can symbolise being physically weak, which contrasts her usual character. The colour palette introduces red again as Heather collapses onto the floor, smashing her glass table. This is done to call back to the red flowers that were squished into the floor at the start of the movie. Going back to the opening scene, we get another insight into the amount of money the Heathers have from them playing croquet together. Croquet is typically associated with rich people due to you needing a large loan to play, and in the past, only rich people would have loans. This is seen in other forms of media such as Alice in Wonderland 1951, where the Queen of Hearts plays croquet at the expense of other animals. During the scenes of them playing croquet, we get a massive insight into the characters and their personalities. The director uses a low-angle shot when focusing on whose turn it is in croquet, showing as they aim and hit the ball. However, the director doesn't show where they're aiming, leaving the audience to assume it's just another goal, despite it ending up being Veronica's head. Another thing I've noticed from the low-angle shot is the way each ball is placed and the colour of the heathers, the red ball being further in front, once again linking to Chandler having more power and therefore being further ahead, the yellow ball not being too far behind, and the green ball being much further away from the both of them, again linking back to earlier with the proximity Heather Duke kept from the other two, symbolising how separated she can feel from the group. From Heather McNamara's turn, we can see that she doesn't have much power, but is okay with that and keeps calm. Heather takes her time with the shot, being careful, which could symbolise the fact that deep down she doesn't really want to hurt anyone, but she wants to stay in the group so she takes part in their games. When she misses the shot, she doesn't overreact. Instead, she's calm, a little disappointed, but overall it isn't a big deal to her. In this scene, we see another example of Heather Chandler's leadership and power over other people. The camera is placed at a mid-shot as Heather McNamara walks back to her place, letting Chandler know it's her turn. This is when Chandler immediately talks back, saying,
Now, Heather, it's Heather's turn.
This is done by the director to show the dominance she holds over the group, as what she says goes. However, this is also used to include the comedy aspect, as it can be seen as funny miscommunication due to them all being called Heather. The scene then cuts to a close-up of the book Heather Duke is holding, Moby Dick. Already, this gives us a massive insight into her character, as the director uses Moby Dick to symbolise a few things. Throughout both the movie and the musical, Moby Dick is used as a symbol for suicide, implying that Heather Duke might be severely unhappy with her life. In the musical, there is one scene in particular where this is shown, when JD gives Veronica's parents her copy of Moby Dick, as a way to convince them she was suicidal. During this scene, we find out that JD had annotated Moby Dick in Veronica's handwriting, using a skill that she had and used to help fake everyone else's suicides against her.
This is not my handwriting.
To add to this, in the movie during the scene where JD is trying to convince Heather Duke to get the entire school to sign a petition, which we later find out is a joint suicide note, we start to get a feel that Heather owned Moby Dick for a deeper reason. Due to her now feeling like she has more power, being in the position that Heather Chandler once was, she believes that her life is now worth something, leading to her giving JD the book as she won't be needing it.
A little gift for you. I won't be needing it.
After Heather leaves, we see a medium close-up of JD skimming through the book and smiling in disbelief. This could be due to the fact that Heather Duke has now given him the perfect material to help frame her death as a suicide due to annotations that she made in the book. Moby Dick is also used to symbolise the leaders of the school and how they are taken out. In the movie, Moby Dick is mainly used to symbolise Heather Chandler, as Moby Dick is the powerful whale in the novel, until she died. JD brings up this symbolism in this very scene as he talks to Heather Duke about Chandler, saying that
Moby Dick is dunked. The white whale drank some bad plankton and splashed through a coffee table.
Very obviously comparing Chandler to this whale, as she was in a big position of power but now has no control over anyone due to her death. This symbolism is then passed on to Heather Duke as JD says,
And now it's your turn to take the helm.
Whilst this symbolises the fact that Duke is now the powerful whale and the one in power at the school, it also symbolises the fact that JD is also planning to dunk her, just like he did to Chandler. Going back to the croquet scene, the camera pans up to show Heather Duke's face as she reacts to Chandler telling her it's her turn. From her facial expressions, you can already tell that she wasn't fully focused on the game and was instead in her own world, in her escape. Duke immediately apologises to Chandler for almost missing her turn, inferring to the audience that she feels inferior compared to Chandler, once again showing Chandler's dominance over the others.
Sorry, Heather.
After Heather takes her shot, it cuts to a mid-shot of both Chandler and McNamara. This shot automatically tells us that Duke missed the target, as both Heathers share a small glance with each other and McNamara looks as if she's trying not to laugh. The director has done this to once again show a distance between Duke and the other two Heathers, feeling as if she doesn't fit in, despite being part of the most popular group at Westerberg. We then immediately follow on from this with Heather Chandler's turn, already seeing her confidence shine through just from the way she walks up to take her turn. Her smug expression shows us that she knows she's going to win. Before taking her shot, Chandler reaches down for the ball so she can give it a lucky kiss. This is very different from McNamara and Duke's turns, showing that because she is the leader, she has her own individuality. Chandler doesn't feel the need to follow the crowd because she is the leader and can get away with anything. As Heather lines up her shot, we are met with a close-up of her face, allowing us to see her smirk as she builds up the power to hit it. The director does this to once again let Heather's confidence shine through. She fully believes in herself and her power, showing her arrogance. Just as Heather takes her shot, the scene cuts to show our main character, Veronica Sawyer, for the first time, as she's buried in the ground. Chandler's croquet ball hits her right on the head, being the only one out of the 3 Heathers who managed to hit her. This symbolises the fact that Heather Chandler is the only one who really has any power over Veronica. She's the leader of the clique, and therefore the only one Veronica needs to appeal to due to her desire for popularity, which is a popular theme throughout the movie. Neither Duke or McNamara pose much of a threat, and she doesn't feel the need to do anything they want her to do, which is shown later on in the movie when Heather Duke takes charge and Veronica isn't afraid to stand up to her. Before the opening scene ends, we cut to a wide shot of all 3 Heathers standing together, starting to laugh at Veronica. This already shows us, before the movie even starts, that they still view Veronica as beneath them, believing they are giving her the opportunity of a lifetime by being in their clique, meaning they can treat her however they want, as shown in both the movie and the musical. Finally, we cut back to the shot of Veronica buried in the ground, allowing her to deliver the iconic line,
Dear Diary.
This piece of dialogue is simple yet incredibly effective, as straight away it tells us that this story will be told through Veronica's perspective. This also allows the start to nicely link with plenty of scenes throughout the movie, as we get multiple insights into Veronica's diary entries. The dialogue Dear Diary has become so well known over the years and can be easily related back to Heather's, causing even the musical to open the show with
September 1st, 1989. Dear Diary.
I'd now like to move on to the overall colour analysis of each Heather. The director specifically chose what colours all the Heathers should wear that would symbolise their character best. Starting with Heather Chandler, as we've already discussed, she wears a lot of red to symbolise her leadership and the power she holds over people. However, this could also symbolise how sexualised she is due to red having connotations of seduction and romance. Throughout the movie, we have a few scenes where characters are either sexualising Heather, talking about how hot she is, or even a scene where Chandler is assaulted, as she clearly didn't want to keep hooking up with a guy, but he pressured her into it. Next up, we have Heather McNamara, whose primary colour palette is yellow. This is due to yellow having connotations of joy and innocence. However, this goes deeper than what it seems at face value, as the yellow clothing could symbolise the happy face she puts onto everyone else, despite her internal struggles with depression. Heather doesn't want to be a nuisance to anyone else, therefore keeps up an act of the happy one, no matter how much she's struggling. This is symbolised with the black cardigan she wears in the opening scene, including a small amount of black to represent her depression and sadness, but then having the rest of the outfit yellow to take the attention away from it and represent the face she's putting on. Heather struggling internally with her emotions is shown later on in the movie and musical, where she both confesses that she's been feeling suicidal and when she tries to kill herself. Finally, we have Heather Duke, who wears mainly green at the beginning half of the movie. This is to symbolise the jealousy she has against Heather Chandler, due to green having connotations of envy. Heather's jealousy is shown at Chandler's funeral, where she admits that she'd wished for Chandler to die many times before.
I prayed for the death of Heather Chandler many times. And I felt bad every time I did it, but I kept doing it anyway. Now I know you understood everything. Praise Jesus.
This tells us as the audience that sometimes she believed her life would be better if Chandler was dead, as she could then potentially take over her role as leader. During the last half of the movie, Heather Duke slowly switches her colour palette to red, once again having connotations of power, where you can see her confidence start to pick up as she's now the leader. The colour red is used a lot throughout the entire movie to symbolise who is in charge in the school, as shown with both Heather Chandler and Heather Duke. However, this is also shown at the end of the movie when Veronica takes the red scrunchie from Duke, putting it in her hair and claiming,
Heather, my love, there's a new sheriff in town.
Therefore taking the reins as leader. Overall, I highly recommend everyone to watch Heathers at least once in their life, as it includes great comedy aspects alongside having some deep themes such as the romanticism of suicide. From my director's commentary, I hope you can tell just how much thought has been put into all aspects of this movie, allowing amazing foreshadowing to be used that you might not notice until on your second rewatch.